Welcome back, everybody, to Ethiopia now, where the country is still grappling with the humanitarian crisis in the Tigray region, triggered by a government's military campaign against the Tigray People's Liberation Front last year, November. The government announced yesterday that it will now allow humanitarian agencies access to the Tigray region. 8 groups have been trying to provide relief to the area since, after the conflict, displacing hundreds of thousands of people. Meanwhile, yesterday, several hundred protesters in the United States called on the American government to intervene in an ongoing war in Ethiopia. This comes after rights group Amnesty International accused Eritrean forces of involvement in the conflict in the Tigray region. It says Eritrean forces killed hundreds of civilians in ancient city of Ashum in northern Ethiopia last year in an incident that it described as a potential crimes against humanity. But Ethiopia has rejected the report. For more on the conflict in Ethiopia's Tigray region, I'm joined via Zoom by Professor Mammo Muchie from the Tshwane University of Technology. Professor, a very good evening to you. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to the Globe.
I really appreciate it for inviting me.
Now, Professor, there's been calls for America to intervene in the ongoing war in Ethiopia by Ethiopians living abroad, especially in America, and from several, former ambassadors, American ambassadors to Ethiopia. So where do you stand with regards to this? What is your position?
My position is that it's important to clarify the kind of intervention that's being requested. What is the intervention you are requiring or people are asking for America to do? I mean, given the situation now, the federal government has now said that they have won the war in Tigray, and now there is a new government, a new regional government in Tigray. So if America is intervening, what is it supposed to do? The other critical point also is the American intervention has never been consistent. It has not been, I don't know if you remember, when Donald Trump was there, he had a bilateral relationship with Egypt. So what did he do? He even said Egypt has the right to bomb the dam, the Grand Renaissance Dam. So what I do not know is that the new President Biden, what relationship he's trying to build with Africa. Our suggestion is that America should relate not to bilaterally to each African state, they should relate to the African Union. So my suggestion, to be honest with you, is that we should try to find African solutions to African problems. We should encourage the African Union and all the other states like South Africa and others to engage, to find ways to negotiate. For example, South Africa has an experience from conflict. South Africa has gone to reconciliation. So they have at least some history that they can share for other African countries. Because in Africa, we always have conflict, coup d'etats. What didn't we have? I mean, many strange things in leadership situation. Because of that, I think it's important that we rely on ourselves to find solutions. And another way is, if I had my way, the suggestion I have is for all the actors in Ethiopia, before they invite outsiders to come and negotiate on their behalf or support them in one way or the other, why don't they try to find solution, to find reconciliation, all right? Mediation, also the meditation process. Before the start of the war, there has been a number of attempts to stop this war from coming, and it came. It's really amazing that it happened. Even in myself, from South Africa, I made an appeal when there was a command post and the state of emergency. I said the best gift that the TPLF regime that stayed for 27 years could do is really a peaceful transition, arranging something like that. And instead, what did they do? They wanted to continue like we have in Africa, as you see. It's like we have in Uganda over 35 years, in Cameroon over 35 years, one leader staying. So even all parties, each party wants to stay So we have a crisis, I think, in the sense that we are not having a system, an institutional priority, and leadership quality. These things have to be addressed very well. I do not recommend America to interfere unless really genuinely there's a specific thing that all the people agree, and if they want to do it, it's my suggestion to them is to find a way to solve their own problems. If you have a problem in your domestically, don't invite others. Try to solve it with your wife. Something like that should be what we should recommend.
What I'm picking up, Professor, is that you are suggesting that Ethiopia, and by extension all African countries in general, should are better capacitated to deal with their own internal problems and conflicts. So are you perhaps suggesting that Ethiopia and other African countries do not necessarily need the Ethiopian, or rather the American assistance?
I don't think, to be honest with you, I don't think we need any external assistance to resolve our conflicts.
Okay.
I think what we should do is, if possible, to find a way to create a new value chain of how do we go from conflict to reconciliation, and how do we use also our traditional values, our Ubuntu, our math. We have many things in Africa, sincerely speaking. And how do we use also our traditional leaders also? All of them, we should be thinking like that, to find approaches, to learn how to agree when we disagree, and to find a way to re-agree. Some new approach is necessary. And then when you do external actors come with their own agenda,
yes,
their own interests. And they often, what do most Americans have here? Lots of military bases in many different African countries. And what do? If each of them side have bilateral relationship with each country, foreign countries, that bilateral relationship becomes number one. So if you have a conflict with your neighbor, an African country, those countries that have bilateral relations will support based on the agreement they made. So that means they will not be helping you to solve your problem. They'll be helping you to even complicate it. So what we need is a new approach. We have many, we have the African Union, we have SADC, we have ECOWAS, we have so many networks. And why don't we create also peace and security? We have like that, peer review mechanism, all right, NEPAD. We have many organizations, but do we make them effective? Do they work? Have they really been active enough to make us, all right, go out of the division of divide and rule and boundaries and everything that foreigners created? All right, the Spanish came here, the Portuguese came here, the Germans came here in Africa, French, the English, everything. What did they do? They imposed themselves on Africa. And what did they? They divided and ruled. The boundaries that were created are very artificial. We should be finding a solution not to fight on the borders others drew cynically to make us fight each other forever. No, that's wrong. For example, there's no reason why Tigray should feel that they should be an independent country. Why do they have to have their own army? Why did they were allowed to have their own army, their own constitution, their own flag, when they have a country called Ethiopia, which it should be, you shouldn't do things like that. I mean, if you have a South Africa, it should be one country. Then we should have one parliament. You should have, you could have regions, but they shouldn't have their own army. They could have police security or something, but not an army. That's what happened. Remember when the Tigray fighting took place? You know what happened? The federal army started to fight them. The Tigrayan had an army, their own army of 250,000 troops. What did they do? They thought that they have technology, drones and many things like that, satellite things. They thought they could win over the federal army. And then what did the federal army do? Used other regional armies from the Afar and Amhara and other areas
Yeah.
and then eventually they crushed them. Something like that happened, because you see the country is in a very difficult and complicated situation. This has to be redone. The constitution has to be rearranged. The arrangement based on language is not good. And then you shouldn't also create armies and constitutions in each region, and then another big constitution, and then conflict comes between the federal constitution and the regional constitution. So many strange things have been done over the last 27 years. They need to be cleaned up. The best way to clean it up is not by foreigners. They could advise foreigners whenever they're asked. But my suggestion is, we have Africans. We should invite South Africans or others from each other, from here, from Africa, to solve our own problems. I mean, on the Grand Renaissance Dam, I think South Africa tried its best. The President Cecil Ramaphosa and the Foreign Minister, Dr. Nalendi Pandor, all of them, they tried what they could do to at least assist how to get the three countries, Sudan, Egypt, and Ethiopia, to at least find some way to make an agreement. Although they didn't make the agreement, but at least from the side of the ideas that Cecil Ramaphosa did, the president, what he did was, don't outsource it. Don't outsource your problems. Try to solve it here as an African problem.
Now,
That's what he did.
Now speaking of internal influence, as you are suggesting, Professor, that such external influence will definitely come with their own agendas, which may not necessarily be in the interests of the local citizenry. Like we've heard so much noise from the United Nations governing bodies, and when it comes to the dire situation in Tigray. But why does it appear that the regional and the continental bodies such as the African Union is helpless and does not have the capacity to deal with internal matters such as we're seeing in Ethiopia?
I think the biggest problem we had, to be honest with you, with the situation in Ethiopia, is that the Tigray People's Liberation Front leaders, before that war started on November 4, there have been a number of traditional means trying to reach them to negotiate. Sincerely, many attempts were made. They did not listen. A lot of people are saying that the reason why they were not listening was they had also external connections. That's what they were saying. Remember the conflicts in the region, the Grand Renaissance Dam thing, many things like in the region.
Yes.
And there was all sides of extremisms, many things like that are happening. Because of that, they were not listening. So the problem was not that it's nothing to do with the fact that the federal side was a mistake. I think from my side, the federal government gave them 6 billion birr, the Ethiopian birr, which is about 3 billion rand. The night before, on November 3, then on November 4, the war was declared, and at my Kedra, I mean, how many people were massacred? Soldiers were massacred when they were asleep. So what I may say to you is that the big mistake came from the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front. I think the federal government at that time, I think a lot of people now are criticizing the federal government, but I think the war was forced on it. In other words, when they saw that the federal army, when they were asleep, was murdered, they had to go. They went in. And unnecessarily, it affected the people of Tigray, which is not good. I mean, that's what happened. So I'm just saying to you, I don't understand why the United Nations, all of this, are making lots of noise. If they make noise, they should do also on all areas. For example, not only in Tigray do we have now a crisis, they say a human rights crisis. There's also, even yesterday, 12 people were killed in Wallaga, another place. They still kill ethnically people in Ethiopia. It has, and nothing is being said. We don't hear it from the government side. We don't hear it from the United Nations side.
And just
We
picking
don't hear
up
it from
on that killings,
why,
Professor.
Why they don't tell us, even from Maikada.
There's been very worrying reports, especially one from Amnesty International, to the effect that some Eritrean soldiers actually participated in the conflict in Tigray and in the process assisting the Ethiopian soldiers. So if these if these reports are true, what could possibly be the implications for that?
You're right. The problem we have now, to be honest with you, is the information. The disinformation is vast about this situation in Ethiopia.
Yeah.
I hope a day will come when real evidence, real genuine evidence, people like you who are genuine journalists go and they get a chance to know exactly what's going on. At the moment, we're hearing many things. You hear big stories. No, seriously. For example, let me give you a concrete example. Some claim that there are not even Eritrean soldiers there. Some say like that. You see, it is to this level that the facts are very, very difficult to find out what's exactly going on. So I hear that the problem is the Eritrean government and the federal government are now, they're collaborating. So it is not that Eritrea came, if they are involved, they are collaborating. It's not that Eritrea is, transgressing another country or something like that. I don't think it's like that. Okay. So the problem, I think the issue is a different one. Now what we're hearing is that they are saying that Eritreans are doing, humanitarian challenges, are creating in Tigray. When you ask the Eritrean side, they say, no, we're not doing anything like that. From the federal government side, we're not. The federal government itself now said they want now external people to enter into the region and find out. Before they were blocking it because of the wartime. But now
apologies for interrupting, Professor. So we are out of time, unfortunately. But this coming Tuesday, Professor, Ethiopia is celebrating 125 years, commemorating the Battle of Ardua, in which the Ethiopians actually defeated the Italian army. So any lessons that the current leadership can draw from that historic moment in terms of bringing the country together?
Thank you so much for asking that question. We are celebrating it. We have been celebrating it in South Africa very well. Yeah. And you, the South Africans, have been also supporting us. Our former patron, the President Thabo Mbeki, gave a brilliant speech on the 120th. And I am hoping that he is also going to bless us by his presence on March 2. The key thing is what we're going to do is we're going to do a great celebration where we are going to ask young people to do all poetry and everything like that. And then all people like you, all of you, to give clips and send us on what it means to celebrate Ardua victory. Yes. The key thing is, what did we win on Ardua? What do we learn from Ardua? Those that were divided, united, and fought an external enemy and won, became victorious. Now, if those that were fighting, all right? In other words, they were even at war with each other, can unite and achieve victory. Why not the TPLF and the current all unite, learn how to unite to create victory for Ethiopia and Africa? Okay. That victory, remember that victory happened when after the scramble for Africa, 1884-85, the Berlin Conference. Yes. All the Europeans said they divide Africa, and then what happens? When they partitioned that part to Italy, when they got beaten, the whole of Europe said, this is a defeat of Europe. This is a victory of Africa. That's what they're saying. Now we have created an great Ardua Great Victory Association, where we are trying to celebrate this victory, not just as an Ethiopian, but the whole of Africa. Because what it did was, intellectually, it's also a great victory. They were saying that Africans are not capable of anything. Then they showed capability. So intellectual capability, knowledge capability, leadership capability. So the whole of Europe said this was a victory, not just against Italy. It's a victory against Europe. not now in Europe, but even in the future. So it's a spiritual victory too. It's an intellectual victory, and it's also a victory of all of Africa. And then the Europeans admitted it, and actually we need it. We need it very much to unite Africa. We need to go from division to unity. We need to not outsource any of our problems. Let's try to solve our problems. That lesson is what Ardua victory gives us. And I very much like us to celebrate it. And I hope you can also, we can send you all the links and everything, so you can also let the whole of South Africa know about this important victory. Just one point. After the Ardua victory in 1896, South Africans created, after 5 months, what is they call the second Ethiopian manifesto. The first one was created in 1829 in America. And you know what? Even I heard South Africans wanted to go and join the struggle.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, Professor, really that particular facet of the country's leadership should be used as a bedrock of building a future that is anchored on peace, unity and social cohesion. Professor Muchie, thank you so much for chatting to us and for sharing your thoughts with us with regards to this issue. We do appreciate your time.
I really appreciate you too. Thank you so much.
All right, there we go. That was Professor Mammo Muchie from the Tshwane University of Technology, just sharing with us his thoughts with regards to the brewing conflict in the Tigray region of Ethiopia.